Hello, my friends. I'm Jacob Nordby, and I'm coming back to you. It's September 1st. It's a new month, and I'm giving you this update. I actually got home last night after a long work day and recorded the first version of this. I did the whole thing, recorded it, put it up to where I could share it with you, and then I woke up this morning and looked at it, and I just said, "Oh, I can't send it out that way." So I deleted the whole thing and it made me laugh because I'm usually pretty okay with going right into something and then letting it be sort of what it is. I don't usually edit everything out, the ums and uhs and things like that. But it wasn't what I wanted to say. And I was laughing because um, part of what I was talking about in the update was perfectionism. I was sharing an Lamott bit on perfectionism, and you can see behind me that is the cat himself. Those of you who follow me on Facebook or Instagram have met the cat himself, and he's not feeling particularly social right now, so we'll let him go about his business. Um, but perfectionism, and what I ended up with last night was what Anne Lamott would call a shitty first draft. It was not good. Okay. Let me read you something from Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. Um, I'll be talking about her a little bit more in just a moment, but Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. And this is what she has to say about perfectionism. Perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of the people. It will keep you cramped and insane your whole life. And it is the main obstacle between you and a shitty first draft. I think perfectionism is based upon the obsessive belief that if you run carefully enough, hitting each stepping stone just right, you won't have to die. The truth is, you will have to die anyway, and that a lot of people who aren't looking at their feet are going to do a whole lot better than you and have a whole lot more fun while they're doing it. What an interesting sort of meta experience of that for me to have been talking about that last night, wake up this morning and realize, oh, I just created a shitty first draft. Um, and I wanted to share that with you because I feel like it's so much a part of what we are tasked with to do in life. Is if we want to take the role in our lives as creators, as creatives, as artisans of life, we have to be willing to move into the unknown. We have to be willing to move across the line of what feels comfortable, of where we feel competent, of where we even know what to do next, right? That is moving into creation in an active way. Anything less than that is mostly duplication or mostly mimicry, right? And by the way, there's nothing wrong with mimicry or duplication. Many of our days, most of our actions throughout most of our days are duplicates of what we did the day before. Many of the things we say and think are duplicates of what we've said or thought before, or it's mimicking what someone else has said or thought. So it's not as if every moment of every day can be spent in completely raw creativity mode, but in the areas that we want to bring greater aliveness, greater artfulness, we have to be willing to move out of our comfort zone and into creation, right? Into the unknown, into where I don't know what to do right now. I don't know what the next step is. And all that's what's interesting about that is that's where we begin to encounter anxiety. And this is what keeps most of us back from creating more original, unique, original, valuable things in our lives, is that to do that, we have to move into the unknown. We have to move outside of our comfort zone. We have to be willing to go into our depths, go into what Carl Jung would call the shadow, those disowned or rejected parts of ourselves. So I find it fascinating that these lessons are coming up for me yet again, and they have all of my life. And I wanted to share them with you, partly because one of the updates for this month is that we are now fully in the registration mode for our Heal Plus Create Writers Retreat, which happens the last weekend of October 29th and 30th, in beautiful Marin, California, at the College of Marin, which incidentally, that's where Robin Williams went to school, and that's where Prince went to school. I didn't know that until I got this venue set up and found out that those were some of the notable alumni. But I'm so excited about doing that. And I'm also very excited about the fact that we are making it available for live stream around the world. So many people have asked me over the years, can you please make some of your events available, for people who want to travel or can travel, but can you also open it up for the rest of us, because not all of us can get there from everywhere. And when I began to form the Institute for Creative Living and Heal Plus Create, I really paid attention to that and said, how can I bring more of that into what we're doing? So we are doing that. And that makes me very excited. We already have so many people who have enrolled from around the world getting ready for this. And but going back to perfectionism and why it's interesting it's coming up right now is that Lamott is one of our main speakers there. And Lamott has done such a beautiful job of expressing the truth of needing to move into the unknown, or what SARK, who's another one of our presenters, would call the marvelous messy middle. Right? We have to be able to move out of what's comfortable, what's known, or what's even comfortable or uncomfortable but known. Sometimes the ego mind and the way our brains are wired, we'd rather have certainty, even if it's not really what we'd love. So the brain kicks in with anxiety and it looks for reasons not to do some things, even though it really might be time to do them. And so as we sit with that, as we imagine, what is it in my life that I want to create more of? I also wanted to share with you the creative formula. That's from my book, The Creative Cure. And I pulled it down off the shelf behind me. The one you see there is the brand new French edition of The Creative Cure. That one just showed up about last week in my mailbox. And it's actually this book, the event we're talking about, everything I share with you is actually really an example of what I'm about ready to tell you about, which is called the creative formula. And this creative formula came to me while I was working on the creative cure. I'm not always a huge fan of, formulas and measurements and exact steps to do things. But one day I was driving along and I was really in the process of, how do I talk about creativity? How do we not just talk about it, but move more into it? And how do we move it beyond the traditional arts so that we're using our innate powers, our natural gifts and abilities to create original, valuable things and experiences and lives? How do we move that beyond concept and into our very being, into the way we live our lives? And, I began to notice there's this pattern of creating anything. And it's something that's always running. It's running right now. As you begin to move throughout the rest of your day, it is running all the time. Anytime you make a choice, anytime you take an action, you've actually in some way, consciously or unconsciously, activated the creative formula. So let's start with it. The creative formula is imagination. Everything starts there. Imagination plus feelings or emotions, right? And then plus words, and then plus actions equals result. And so let's go back over that. So imagination, everything starts in our imaginations, whether it's I'm lying in bed thinking about it, it'd be nice to get up and have some coffee. Oh, but there's an expanse of cold floor between me and the kitchen. I'll have to walk across that. So we begin to picture what it is we desire and how to get there. But you notice right away then that picturing brings up feelings. You can imagine the feeling of the cold floor on your feet. For some people, that might be a really pleasurable imagination. For others, it might be like, oh, I'm just dread that. I'll have to, clench my teeth and get through it. So every imagination brings up feelings and thoughts, right? And then what's interesting is the words that we use, either externally or internally, begin to then reinforce those imaginations that are then powered by emotions and feelings. So those words we use. So if for example, someone, is thinking about a meeting they're about ready to have, and it's an important meeting, and they begin thinking about it, and then they begin to have anxious feelings about it, and because they have memories of having not done well in this type of meeting before, whether it's a first date or a job interview or any of those things, the feeling then comes up. And whether it's inside their head or something they might say out loud, I always mess these things up. I'm never comfortable with these things. I don't like first dates or job interviews because I just don't ever feel comfortable. I feel like I never know what to say. And notice how that chain of events then leads to action. So if a person goes into that first date or into that interview with that chain of events having been linked up, their posture, their neurochemicals that are being released in their body, the thoughts that they're thinking, even the way they breathe and hold their face, everything will be much more in line, much more likely to be in line with whatever story that they had been telling themselves and feeling and seeing in their minds. And so therefore that will affect the results. And that doesn't necessarily mean the result will be terrible, but they may not get the result that they really truly desire. So as we're sitting together and thinking about the lives we really want to create and how these things can be applied outside of what we might commonly call creativity or the arts or any of those kinds of things, just think about how can I employ the creative formula to help me move into unknown experiences, make choices that are in the direction of, I would love to have more of this or create more of this in my life. How can we begin to sort of reverse engineer this so that we start right at the beginning, right before the whole thing even kicks into action? Because what I just described is usually happens in a split second. We don't even notice that it's happening. And so the ability to put our hands on the wheel and gain more control over that process means that we have to allow it to become conscious, which means practice, right? Now we're back to practice. And so I want to invite you to take 3 or 4 minutes every day and go through those questions in my creative self-journaling program. I'll put a link to that here that you can grab that for free. But put yourself through these 3 questions and keep in mind this creative formula. So the first question is, how do I feel right now? Now, this is not one you need to jump in and say, I need to feel differently than I do. No, how do I feel right now? Sometimes we approach a situation and we haven't addressed the way we're feeling in the moment. And that's going to color our imagination. That we might, begin to then imagine disaster, downside, failure, rejection, any of these things, because we have not addressed the feelings that are present right now. So how do I feel? Secondly, what do I need right now? What do I need? Once again, this is just being very honest. And it may be something very mundane, such as I need to rest. Or before I walk into this meeting, I need to take 5 minutes and just breathe and get myself calm and centered, and maybe then begin to employ the creative formula in a new way, in a more productive way. And then the third question, this is really where we can move into the creative formula. What would I love? Or how would I love to feel? Or what would I love to create right now? So using those things, those 3 questions, I find helps us then move more consciously into the creative formula and using that as part of our everyday experience of life. And I want to invite you to play with that, experiment with it, use it. All right. So I'm going to wrap up here, but I want to say that in the description, if you're seeing this on just YouTube or in the email update, you will see links to several upcoming member workshops for the Institute for Creative Living and Heal Plus Create. And these are all being moved over to the Heal Plus Create platform. While we're in that transition period, I'm keeping it all open for everyone at no extra charge, right? So 3 things we have coming up. The first one is Dao Yin Yoga-Qigong with my good friend, Paul David Shea. He's been now coming back to do this once a month, and I just love this experience. It's gentle movement, it's breathing, it's moving our essential energy in our bodies and actually experiencing it, feeling it. It's kind of like Kung Fu Panda, only in real life. I love it. I've begun practicing it more in my daily life, and I just notice how getting back into my body, getting back into the green zone begins to put me more in the frame of mind and heart and imagination and feeling to create the kind of day, the kind of moment that I want to create. And the second one is Therapeutic Doodling for Fun and Healing with the therapist Carin. I'm so excited to bring her back. We just love this, and it's such a fun, joyful experience, but it's also surprisingly deep. It's really interesting what gets revealed during this. And the third one is Update Your Brain with Dr. Chris Niebauer. I'm so excited to bring Dr. Chris back. He's a neuropsychologist, and he's going to lead us through experiences, but also do some teaching about what it is that's running our brains. And it's largely about a 30,000 plus year outdated program that was developed and really hardened in humans' consciousness about 30,000 years ago. So imagine that your iPhone or Android, you have not allowed it to be updated in, 30,000 years is too much for us to imagine, but imagine you haven't allowed your iPhone or Android to update in, say, 5 or 10 years. And you still have the thing and it's still operating on the oldest software available. That's kind of like what's been going on with the human species, that we've been allowing outdated programs, outdated ways of dealing with the world, survival strategies, coping mechanisms to run the program of our life, of our brain, which then really begins to predict the outcome, what it is we're going to experience in life. So I want to invite you to join us for all of those. Just click the link, RSVP. As you'll see, those are at no cost. And I would really love to invite you to join us for the Writers Retreat, either online through live broadcast or in person if you can make the trip to beautiful Marin, California. That is filling up very quickly. And that includes, as I said, Anne Lamott, Julia Cameron, SARK, Dr. Eric Maisel just agreed to join us. We also have Lauren Sapala, and I'll be teaching, and Linda Jones, who's known as the writing doula from Dallas. She'll be there. And also Sam Lamott. Did I mention him already? Yeah, we have a really full weekend planned, and I'm so excited. We'll also be recording it with beautiful production because Sam Lamott owns a studio, so he'll be doing the video and audio for this. And we'll make those recordings available, whether you come in person or online, for up to 12 months, which means you get to go in and experience it for a intensive weekend, but then you get to go back to it as often as you want during a whole year. So I invite you to join us. I'm so happy to be here with you right now. And thank you. I'll say this again, as I always do. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Remember that the most valuable, unique, and original creative project you can ever embark upon is becoming who you really are. Self-discovery, finding out, who am I? Self-acceptance. Oh, I'm beginning to really like this person who I'm finding out about. And then transformation, which to me, again, only means now I get to become who I really am, who I'm meant to be. I get to have the life I'm meant to create, right? All right, I'll talk with you soon. Thank you for being here.